I thought surely the Heritage model will be the one that comes out with these sweet Early Bronco fender flare or fenders that you can now buy from Ford. But no, I was wrong.
We found out later the reason he had these giant wheels and tires on it, it's the way he bought the truck. He didn't pick them out or put them on. It was the only way to clear the disc brake conversion somebody had done on the back.
And I think the Bronco 2 is going to get super popular here in just a few, Bronco 2 is going to come back and people are going to be like, oh, these are super cool.
Oh, yeah. The first 200 or so Broncos were actually called Budd trucks. They're a little different in the way they're built. If you look underneath at the tub, you can see some ways that they're different.
Here we are back doing another episode of the BronCast. Thank you so much for watching these. And if you haven't yet, make sure to check out the BronCast, BronCast, wherever you listen to your podcasts.
So, John, we got to talk about what Ford let out of the bag August 11th.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, the new Heritage model. So everybody's talking about it. So since it came out. So, I mean, I have my opinions. What's your first impression?
Man, I wish... First impression, I mean, it looks great. I wish they would have done more. I wanted to see, I don't know. I wanted to see more homage to the classic. I just feel like they could have done so much more. You remember early on, Ford had released a model of the Bronco, or they had a build at SEMA, and it had these awesome Early Bronco looking fenders on it.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought surely the Heritage model will be the one that comes out with these sweet Early Bronco fender flare or fenders that you can now buy from Ford. But no, I was wrong.
Yeah, they did change the shape of them just a little bit. They got a little sort of squared off a little bit, but they're not the giant where they're a different color. They match the roof. I thought they'd have done a little bit more of that.
Yeah. What do you think about it?
Oh, first of all, I know the wheels are alloys, but they look like Steelies.
Yeah.
I just think the white painted wheels, and I know the first ones that came out, they were silver, but I like the Wimbledon white.
Yes, totally.
Huge fan of that. And they did do the Wimbledon white grille and the roof, which I thought's all pretty cool. And, at a glance, it does kind of look like an older Bronco.
Yeah.
I have all these old Broncos at my house all the time because I'm driving customers' trucks to make sure things are right. And my new one, I had it in the driveway, and one of my neighbors thought, she goes, wow, you really fixed that old truck up. And I thought it was funny. It's like, no, that's actually a new one. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, I like that they did the Heritage Edition. I think it's super cool. There's no 3 on the tree, but still.
Yeah, I like the little details for sure. I love the white roof. It's funny seeing the roof though, and compared to an early Bronco, it looks squatty. The roof looks like they just jumped on it a bunch and compressed it down. But yeah, that's the first time I was like, oh wow, the roof really does look different from an early Bronco when you see it in white. But yeah, I love the steely wheel look, the white grill.
Bunch of new colors.
Yep. New colors.
They have a yellow and some throwback colors.
Yeah, which I think is cool. But yeah, I mean, I think my thought is I wish they would have done more, but I still think it's super cool.
Yeah, they also did a lot of it on the Bronco Sport.
Oh yeah.
So from the front, it just looks like a micro version of a Bronco. But coming down the road, every once in a while, I'll see those sports running around, and first you think Bronco, and then like, oh, okay, it's like the Bronco's little brother.
Yeah,
it's a little bit smaller.
Yep.
Yep,
for sure. Bronco Sports. Everyone's like, that's not a real Bronco. I'm like, it is. It's in the Bronco family.
Yeah.
So you got to count it. It's like the Bronco 2. It's like you getting a bunch of early Bronco guys together and they're like, oh, the Bronco 2 doesn't count. It does count. And I think the Bronco 2 is going to get super popular here in just a few, like the next kind of wave of, you know how it's like each generation gets cool. Like early Broncos got cool, 15 years ago again. Then the second gen Bronco has been super cool for a while. And, you're seeing those get bought up. And I think the third, fourth, and fifth generation are getting there too. And Bronco 2 is going to come back and people are going to be like, oh, these are super cool.
Oh, yeah.
Still, there's a couple people that it's like they're just holding on hope that the Bronco 2 get popular again.
They have their own crowd.
Yes.
And
yeah, for sure.
You don't see very many of them though.
No, you don't. Well, moving right into the next section of the BronCast, we've been doing a little DIY or PAY, and we started with talking about the early Bronco, talked about fluid and leaks in episode 1. We talked about brakes in episode 2, and talked about steering in episode 3. So now you got your brakes working, you got your fluids and your leaks all checked out. You know at least where they're coming from and why. You're not going to die. You got your steering sorted. So now, where are you going with your Bronco, Donnie? What's next on your list?
I'm always all about wheels and tires. They make the car, they make the truck.
Who cares about the engine? Let's go to the
as long as it looks
tires.
cool in my driveway, I'll get to the other stuff later. Guys that work on cars and trucks, they fix their stuff last.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I love wheels and tires, but we see all sorts in here, and we had one that came into the shop that had these giant wheels and tires with 8-inch dishes on them, and they were sticking out so far. We literally took up 2 bays.
Oh my gosh.
And, we found out later the reason he had these giant wheels and tires on it, it's the way he bought the truck. He didn't pick them out or put them on. It was the only way to clear the disc brake conversion somebody had done on the back. So it was to space them out so the bleeder valve didn't hit the rim. There wasn't enough room for it was kind of a mess. And, so, it just created all these problems. And the first thing that guy wanted to do was, he wanted some, either Bajas or classic 3s or, slotted mags, something cool to look more retro than these. I don't know what these wheels were.
Yeah.
They were ugly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, wheels and tires it's definitely the, and I would throw suspension in there a little bit because, if you got a stock Bronco, you're not throwing 33s under there or 35s under there. My Bronco, I have a 2.5-inch lift with a 1-inch body lift, and I run 35 12.5s. So a 35-inch tire, that's 12.5-inch wide. And then I think my wheel, I used to always call it a rim. My wheel is a 10.5-inch wheel. But something that I think is important to keep in mind, if you've never bought wheels and tires for a truck, for an off-road vehicle, offset and back spacing. Those are 2 really important things because 1, safety, but 2, you don't want it to look weird.
Yeah.
And talk about safety a little bit, wheel studs, that kind of thing.
Yeah, ironically, that same truck that had these wheels sticking way out, and they had, 1.5 inches of spacers in there. And then, of course, so what happens when you put that much leverage on a wheel stud is it breaks. Well, yeah. Each wheel had like maybe 3 studs on it. There was at least
3 threads?
No, 3 studs out of 5. So they'd already been snapping off because of just the leverage of those wheels sticking out so far. So I told him, I said, hey, we're going to have to address this. You're getting new wheels. I said, I'm not convinced that all of these studs haven't been stressed. I said, so we've got new wheel studs. Jeez. And, but you got to get the right length for your wheel. If stock studs won't always work on a new rim that you bought. Like you can't have 3 threads holding a nut on to the stud. So, I always recommend the strongest stud you can get. ARP is one of our sponsors, and they make cadmium plated 8740 chromoly studs, and they're the strongest. They're up to 190,000 tensile strength. So it's what NASCAR uses. It's what the Speed Demon uses. So if you're gonna buy some new wheel studs, make sure they're the right length for your rim. I personally don't like spacers, so let's go back to talking about offset and how that affects.
Well, I agree with you. I mean, if you're getting new wheels and tires, you should just plan on getting new wheel studs. Like, because most likely the 50-year-old ones that are on your truck are beat, and the nut probably barely goes on there because they've been all mangled from taking the wheel on and off, and then you add on, this heavy wheel and tire combination. And this is one of those things, if you're going 50 miles down the road and your wheel studs bust and your tire flies off, like in a Bronco, you're dead, and if you don't die, you're lucky. Buy a lottery ticket. But
you're most likely, if the wheel studs, you'll start having issues, you'll hear it.
True.
You just got to slow down quick and pull over before the wheel comes off. But if you don't have enough nut threaded on, they're going to come off real. Once one comes off, they're going to come off. So the point is that is one of the things that you should check. We're going to talk about a couple things. One is, do you have 5 wheel studs per wheel? If you don't, go right to your wheel and tire store and have that fixed. Because, is it a DIY thing, or a PAY? But the tire shops do it so fast and so simple, and you don't have to pull the drum off to knock it out. So that's one of those things. I personally take them to the tire shops.
Oh, yeah. There are some things like that. Even though it's easy and you can do it, it is way quicker to pay someone to replace your wheel studs. And it's cheap, too. That's not an expensive upgrade, So, yeah, I agree. That's a PAY with the wheel studs. But, yeah, we were talking about offset and back spacing and all that, and basically that just means where the face of your hub meets the back of your wheel, like where those two surfaces come together. That is your offset, basically. And if it is towards the front of the wheel, then you have a positive offset. If it's towards the back of the wheel, you have a negative offset. But that's also another dangerous thing that I see a lot of people do is they will put a real negative or real positive offset on with their wheel, and that just adds more stress onto your wheel stud. It adds just more pressure because you think about it at 70 miles an hour, 50 miles an hour even, your wheel is spinning and you're building up all this force, and if that is building and it's a weird offset for your wheel studs, then you're putting a lot more stress on your system. So obviously a 0 or close to 0 offset is where you want to be, but it's not always possible. And sometimes you're looking at how the wheel and tire looks on your Bronco. But I've talked to so many people who have bought new wheels because they just want a different rim. They want a new wheel on there, and they don't even think about offset, and they buy like a -4 or something like that, and it just looks terrible. And they're like, but it didn't look like this in the picture. And they're like, what did I do wrong? And I'm like, offset. Like, you have to pay attention to offset when you're buying your rims, when you're buying your wheels, excuse me.
Well, on the one truck that had the wheels spaced out to clear the caliper, which meant that the disc brake was actually not even within the inside of the wheel. It's just super goofy. So there were a lot of unsafe things about that truck, but we bought a 17-inch rim.
Yeah.
And, now the whole rotor and caliper are inside the wheel, protected where it's supposed to be. You're not going to bounce it off a rock.
Yeah.
And the truck looked so much better.
Yeah. Yeah. So on my Bronco, I think the tires stick out from under the fender like 1.5 inches. And I think that's a good amount, and I have a pretty, it's close to a zero offset. I actually didn't buy the wheels, so I'm not sure what it is exactly, but it's pretty even. My wheel is pretty even with the offset, and then your back spacing is kind of the same kind of thing there as well.
Yeah, I want to talk about tires. I love wheels and tires. We could look at wheel catalogs all day long. But when it comes to tires, there's, for Gen 1, everybody loves the BF Goodrich KO2s, and that's what everybody seems to go with, and they're pretty good value. They last a good long while. My Gen 6 Bronco has Goodyears on it, and absolutely love these. They're called Territory MTs, and they're grippy, and I thought I knew what I wanted, and I rolled around on these 35s right from the factory, and they're terrific. I mean, they corner well, they're soft, they're not real loud, actually pretty quiet
thing. Yeah.
And I would have just thought, I'm going to go with some BF Goodriches on it when we go 37, and then Mickey Thompson's got these amazing tires. They're the Baja Legend.
Yeah.
And there's terrific. They all this tread on the side.
Yeah.
And so when we go to 37s, those are going to go on some Icon rims.
Okay.
So it's going to be sweet.
That's going to be awesome. Yeah. Noise is a big one with tires. Man, there are some, if you are at all, if you're searching for new tires, I would definitely Google what tires are the noisiest. I don't know off the top of my head, but I have driven in some rigs that it's like, oh my gosh, this is annoying. Like some super swamper type tires just like, blah, 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 blah. Like you're driving down the road. Like I was trying to do an interview with someone in their early Bronco at Super Celebration. And I mean, their tires were so loud. I was like, I can't interview you in your Bronco. It wasn't the engine noise. It was the tire noise, you know? And it was just obnoxious. So yeah, that's a big one.
What do you like for a Gen 1 Bronco? Or
I like the KO2s.
Yeah.
The all-terrain, that's what I have on mine. I think those are really good balanced tire. I also like the mud terrain BF Goodrich. The Baja Claw is super noisy. I remember riding with a guy who had the Baja Claws, which are also Mickey Thompson. And then what did you have? What does your Bronco come with? The Goodyear? Was it the Goodyears?
Yeah, the Territory MTs.
Those are really nice as well. Like I've driven a couple of the
They
Broncos.
seem very comparable to the BF Goodriches.
Yeah.
What I like about the BF Goodriches is we order a lot of those. You can get them in white leather, which is throwback to the 70s. You can get white line, white outline letters, or you can get black wall. Yeah. So you flip them inside.
Yeah. But speaking of tires, you know a lot about just the health of tires. What should people look for? Just we're throwing stuff out here for people who are buying new Broncos and getting, one. Even if the tires look good, what should you be looking for on your tire?
Yeah, you can tell how old a tire is. It's not like reading the rings on a tree. There's actually a number there's a date on the tire. You just got to find it. If it's an outline letter tire, a white letter tire, it's always going to be on the inside, on the black wall.
Oh, okay.
So, and it's a little oval, like the shape of a pill or a minion.
Yeah.
And it's got a date in it. It's usually 2 digits and 2 digits, like 07 of 06, which would be July of 2006. And we've got a truck in here now, and that is the date on the tires. And, he wanted to drive it back after he picked it up 3 hours after it's been sitting for 7 years. And I said, we're doing all this work. We're doing a disc brake conversion and power brake booster. We're doing EFI. And I said, you really need to either trailer it back or, get some tires. I said it's not safe to drive something that, and you can see the dry rot on the tires, but it still has like the little nibs and stuff.
Right.
So apparently they were new and they just sat out in the sun and were never used.
Man. Well, there you go. A little DIY or PAY talking about tires and wheels, what wheels to buy, what tires to buy. Next week we need to talk about suspension. Talk about our suspension for our new tires. Sound good?
Oh, yeah. Mostly Gen 1 suspension. Yeah. We've done some Gen 6 stuff.
Yeah. Well, something that, we love to talk about and all Bronco owners love to do is buy parts. And so let's talk about what are some parts? What are some things that you're loving on this week that you think people should get?
Oh, yeah. Headlights.
Oh.
Yeah. New headlight trim rings.
Yeah.
And headlights and turn signals just right there in the front, right in the grill. It's about all there is there.
Yep.
You know, unless you got the fancy letters. But I really have installed a couple of headlights, and they, going from a sealed beam bulb, that you can buy for $8, and you're going to an LED light. First of all, the return on your investment, it can be $200 to $500.
Sure.
Makes a huge difference when you're driving your truck at night.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And
you can actually see at night.
Yeah. Because otherwise they're like this amber yellow dim lights and you can't see anything. And, but yeah, just headlights, and then while you're at it, buy the chrome trim rings, and it just makes the whole front of the truck look brand new. But there's a couple different ones we've installed recently. One of them are, they kind of look futuristic. Initially, I had mixed feelings about them, but now all the Bronco builders are using them. So if you're buying a $200,000 plus truck, you're getting these sci-fi headlights is what I call them, because it looks like they got like 2 or 3 little eyeballs inside. But those are as inexpensive as like $299 for a set, and it's literally, they're so easy to wire in. I almost put one wrench on it.
Yeah.
It's that simple. Yeah. And then while you're there, you might as well do the little, turn signals right there, because they're right there. And you've got brand new headlights and not that. And the trim rings aren't expensive. And then, so another set, if you don't like that look and you like the traditional sealed beam look where the light looks original, Holley's come out with some new super bright LED headlights that look like an original sealed beam bulb. They're all silver, and they're a little more money, but everything is built into the bulb, super easy to install, and they're super bright.
Yeah, I do. I there are times where I regret putting in the LEDs on mine because it does look a little sci-fi, as you said, and I wish I went with something like what Holley has, but there's other times I just love now driving at night with my headlights. Anyway, yeah.
Those new lights by Holley are called Retro Brights.
Retro Bright. That's cool. Well, for me, this isn't a Bronco part specifically, but it's the Milwaukee Impact Drill. I think I got the 1/2-inch drive. Dude, this thing, it is like so powerful. Are you air tools still at the shop?
Well, a little bit of both. Sometimes, it's just you need a cordless.
Yeah. I mean, I always thought, you have to do air tools if you have a legit shop. But that Milwaukee Impact Drill, I am not kidding you. That thing has so much torque. I was taking apart my 74 that I'm fully restoring, and I was taking just, stripping it down, like taking everything off the axle to get the axles rebuilt. And the pinion yoke on the back has that huge nut that, it's probably torqued down to, 200-300 foot-pounds. It's like that thing, someone wailed on it to get that thing on. And I had that drill and just popped it off. And I was just so impressed with how much torque that thing has. And, I've really, really enjoyed it. So yeah, the Milwaukee Impact Drill, if you're doing anything on your Bronco, I highly recommend it.
So in our last episode, we talked about those clay models that were sitting on the rotunda in the Ford Design Center, and how marketing named the truck. They took it from there essentially and called it the Bronco. But what a lot of people don't know is that it didn't go right from the clay model into production. Ford had to make so many models to give the dealers to put on display to sell. Really? And, you know, they turned this whole Bronco project around in really short time. You know, when you think about they got the money in like 18 months before they were already rolling on the assembly line, and they had to design and develop, and they had some ideas and some testing, but they had to produce an entire body, and they did a great job because they didn't have to change it a lot. But Ford uses this company, and a lot of other companies did too, called the Budd Company. So the first 200 or so Broncos were actually called Budd trucks. That's what everybody nicknames them. They're like 66s, and they're a little different in the way they're built. If you look underneath at the tub, you can see some ways that they're different that identify them. Like the radiator core support has almost no holes in it. It's like a flat piece of metal. So there's a few things that are specific to the Budd truck. Like if you wanted to build one exactly that way, but they're numbered. You can find them, and there's just some other things about it is that because there was such limited production, the Budd Company would create like temporary dies. You know, they'd use bucks and all kinds of things, but they'd take the clay model, make the body. They actually did the 64.5 Mustang that everybody talks about. They did like the first 6 months of the Mustang until Ford gets their giant dies for their presses done. They use companies like that. But the Budd Company also had kind of a cool reputation for building all kinds of stuff. There was a train back in the 40s called the Silver Streak, and it was an all stainless steel train, aerodynamic, 3 cars. Most people don't know this, but it actually went 120 miles an hour from like New York to Chicago. And that was like our first high-speed transportation, and it kind of went away.
Wow.
But they put that whole, those were like mono bodies, stainless steel, and they spot welded the entire car together, and it just sat on a frame like a vehicle does.
Wow, man. That's really cool that the Budd Company, Budd trucks, I don't know how many people actually know that those exist. I was on Facebook and someone posted one, and it was funny because a lot of the comments were, no, you know, that's not real. You've got, you know, this isn't real. You know, it's not a real Bronco kind of thing. And then people started chiming in like, no, this is a Budd truck. Like, you know, because someone just found it and, hey, how much is this worth? And I bought this Bronco. And even the tops on the Budd trucks were different than what you would normally see as a Bronco, current, you know, early Bronco wagon top. And
the tailgates. They had a tailgate. It's called a waterfall tailgate. And the Broncos that we all know, early first gen Broncos, had this line or this design seam and theirs didn't. It just went straight down. It followed the shoulder line of the sides of the truck and went straight down. It didn't have that line there. And it didn't say Ford off to one side either. I did see one recently. I think it was like number 20, and it had Ford spaced out all the way across the tailgate.
Interesting.
So it might have been, supposedly it was like truck number 20. I thought that was really interesting.
That's cool, like those little design things that, and you know that these are the trucks that were going around and that they were using for marketing, that they were using at the dealerships, which is something that car companies still do today. I mean, with the new Bronco, that was what I would work on, was the, you know, the kind of pre-production model of the Bronco. And so it was funny because, you know, we'd do a video about, how to do this. And then it was like, we moved this bolt, you know, and it's like, well, okay, that, you know, that video needs to change somehow on how to, you know, do whatever it is. But yeah, it's like, that's how kind of car companies do it, is you make a bunch of the pre-production models, get the testing done of, you know, of how it works, how it functions, what some of the issues are, get people driving them, get people working on them, and figure stuff out before they actually hit the market, and be able to then have a good launch when you launch a new vehicle and stuff like that. But that's funny that was going on even back in 1966 with the Bronco.
Yeah, I'd like to see a really nice original Budd truck so I can really come over it, and we still need to drive that GPW.
Yes,
the World War II Ford.
Yeah. If anyone has a GPW that they want to let us drive, we would love to. Love to experience some of the pre-Bronco history by driving around an old GPW. That'd be super cool. But yeah, and again, we have said this before, but if you have any questions or you have anything that you want to talk about, hit us up at questions@thebroncast.com. That is questions at THEBRONCAST.com. Well, that's it for today. Episode 4 in the books. Looking forward to some of these episodes coming up. We've got some really cool information to talk about, some cool history, and talking more about Bronco parts, not just for the early Bronco, but also for the Gen 6 stuff.